fearless,
I can look at anyone straight in the face. I have integrity.
an anti-corruption crusader,
We go by the evidence. We cannot pressure to file a particular case against someone if we don't believe that that should be the charge.
defying President Rodrigo Duterte himself,
It is the Ombudsman and not the Office of the President which has administrative jurisdiction over an overall Deputy Ombudsman and the Deputy Ombudsman.
soon ending her stint at the Office of the Ombudsman. What lies ahead for Conchita Carpio Morales? Let's go straight to the source of the story, Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales. Ma'am, Justice,
Yes.
again, thank you for this interview.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be interviewed by you again.
How are you feeling? 1 month left.
I'm excited. My friends tell me if you had waited for almost 7 years, why can't you wait for more than a month more?
You are known to be a very hard worker here at the Office of the
yes.
Ombudsman. You come in at 6 a.m.
Yes, that's right.
What are you going to do on your first day of retirement? What time will you wake up? You're not going to come here at 6 a.m.
Of course, I'll wake up late, but you know my body clock is there. Whether I like it or not, I usually wake up for 4:45 and thereabouts.
You said you're excited.
I am.
Yeah, but will you miss the people around here? The people you've
Certainly,
been...
I'll miss them, and they'll miss me too, I am sure. They'll miss my voice, they'll miss my crankiness, they'll miss everything about me. Especially most of my staff came from the Supreme Court.
Are you itching to leave the Office of the Ombudsman?
Yes, after almost 7 years, as I have been saying before, I think I'm a masochist because the volume of work is simply too overpowering.
You are leaving the office with how many cases left, Justice?
We have yet to fully conduct a physical inventory, but as of end of last year, there were more than 6,000 cases.
Are you quite satisfied with that? Because I remember the last time we spoke, ma'am, and research will tell us that when you came in, you inherited about
19,000?
19,000,
Right.
18,000 cases.
Yes,
And then
yes.
nadagdagan pa yun, Justice, as you...
Yes, yes. I inherited 19,000 more or less, and for every year, there was an inflow of cases around 6,000 more or less.
Justice, if you were to look back at the landmark cases filed during the time you were ombudsman, what would they be?
Landmark cases? Well, of the cases against President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the cases against Binay, the case against Ongpin, though the Sandigan Bayan dismissed that case.
What are the cases you feel after you leave that need to be pursued immediately?
The cases which are pending in court because if they are not dismissed because of inordinate delay, the cases which are dismissed have long been filed before I came in.
Naiwan na kaso.
Yun may pending investigation.
Oh, may pending
Right.
investigation that you
Yeah.
wish matapos or matugunan ng susunod na ombudsman. Which ones would they be?
Cases against those who are alleged to have committed offenses in the DAP cases and the remaining PDAF cases, some Malampaya cases, and all these high-profile cases.
Do you feel, Justice, that nagkaroon ho ba kayo ng pagkukulang somehow? Because when I look back at what you have said to us and to the rest of the media, that you were hoping that by last year,
Yeah.
you would have finished the PDAF cases, and I believe the DAP cases as well.
I said I intended to finish it before or on about the expiration of my term. But unfortunately, given the volume of cases that the office is handling, I am afraid we may not be able to finish all PDAF cases. There are several of them.
So that that promise, I guess, that you had,
That was an expectation.
Sorry?
That was an expectation.
Yeah, an expectation did not,
Yes, yes.
you did not
May
fulfill
not.
that.
Well, between now and July 25, why not?
Kaya pa ba?
I really don't know.
How do you feel though when it's been said over and over again, and you've been hit by this kind of criticism that because of the PDAF cases and the DAP cases, that you are doing selective justice?
That's not true. You will note that, and they always say that what I did was to file cases against the opposition, namely Enrile, Revilla, and Estrada, among other legislators. Why were these cases prioritized? First, they are high-profile cases. Second, and more importantly, you recall that Napoles executed an affidavit naming them, detailing the circumstances that gave rise to the cases. So it was Estrada, it was Revilla, and it was Ponce Enrile. She came up with even matrix of data. So, and with respect to some legislators, congressmen, she mentioned Linete and Valdez and Dangwa and Plaza. So you recall that she came up with an affidavit, which was, by the way, notarized by the now Deputy Commissioner of the BIR for purposes of, if I recall it correctly, seeking immunity as a witness. So it was easier for us to pass upon these cases because there was this confession of Napoles, and of course, independently of that, we had the testimony of Louis, and we had documentary evidence sourced from Louis and sourced elsewhere.
So it's clear to you that the reason among the big fish that you charged with are Senators Enrile, Estrada, and Revilla. They were the three because they were the ones that were part of the narration, which was notarized by Janet Lim Napoles back then.
Right. It was easier for us to pass upon the evidence because here comes the alleged conspirator or alleged, what's this, principal malefactor, saying that this and that and that, and coming out with details that only she could have furnished.
If we were to look, move forward now to the situation now, you had a Janet Lim Napoles who was given a provisional inclusion in the witness protection program, and possibly back then Secretary Aguirre was looking at turning her into a state witness because she had a narration of other lawmakers numbering about 100 who were supposedly involved in the PDAF and the DAP. Is that something you believe, ma'am?
That was unfounded on the part of Aguirre to begin with. It is the Ombudsman who has the final say on who will be indicted. So you speak only of state witness when a case is already filed in court. So what was he talking about? The case is filed in court. That was not his concern. It was the concern of the Ombudsman. So he was out of tune when he was saying that he was considering Napoles to be a state witness. Unless, of course, he was referring to cases that were going to be filed yet. But then again, he could not have stated that because, again, as I said, it's the Ombudsman who will determine who will be a state witness.
I think it was made clear eventually that there are succeeding cases that can be filed. But again, as you say, Ombudsman, it's up to the office of the Ombudsman
because
to
whatever
determine
investigation
this.
they had to refer it to us. And the final say on who will be indicted or who will be freed would be the Ombudsman.
So you have a new secretary, Secretary Menardo Guevara now. Are you more confident? What are your thoughts about him? He lifted the provisional authority of the Witness Protection Program of Janet Lim Napoles. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, he's fair. He has no integrity issue. And I believe that he did correctly by lifting or at least recognizing the termination of the provisional placing of Ombudsman, of Janet in the witness protection program.
But you have a Solicitor General, Justice, who I interviewed very recently. So Solicitor General Jose Calida was telling us we should listen, government should listen to the narration or to what Janet Lim Napoles knows about this PDAF or
There's
the DAP.
nothing that can prevent everyone to listen to her. If it did, she has a salvo against anyone. So it's right. We should hear her, whatever she wants to say.
I mean, for someone like you, would you want to listen to Janet Lim Napoles? Would she have any credibility for you?
At this point in time, whatever she says now would probably be taken with a jaundiced eye, because if she had wanted to say something before against someone, she should have done that years back. It's now 2018. The last time I think that she came up with an affidavit was 2014. That's 4 years ago. What was the reason why she did not say anything against anyone, whereas she is implicated in Rile, Revilla, and Estrada?
But they were opposition senators back then, Justice.
I did not look at the political color of these people.
What they're saying is that only 3 were charged because they were opposition senators, and that was the time during the Aquino administration. So fast forward to a Duterte administration, there are more names that could come out who could be part of the Liberal Party.
Well, it would depend on what she's going to say. It's still premature for me to say if her credibility is dented or it can be given credit.
All right. Can I move on to some of the investigation being conducted by the Office of the Ombudsman prior to you leaving? Justice, just the status on the Mamasapano case.
Well, we indicted the President, and we indicted also Purisima for conspiracy in committing usurpation of authority. But there was an appeal to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court issued a TRO restraining the Sandigan Bayan from proceeding with the Mamasapano case. So that's the present status.
Because I think the appeal, Justice, was to
They
charge him
wanted-
for...
Yes, they wanted him indicted. They wanted the president indicted for reckless imprudence resulting to multiple homicide. 45 cases of homicide, because I think there were 45 who died. So that's the present status now. There's a TRO, so the Sandigan Bayan has to heed the Supreme Court mandate.
And you were criticized for that because it appeared that you may have charged the former president, but it was a soft or a weak charge.
We go by the evidence. We cannot be pressured to file a particular case against someone if we don't believe that that should be the charge. We go by the evidence.
One is a new investigation. This is a new investigation, Justice, on Paulo Duterte. This is not the 6.4 billion pesos shabu shipment involvement, supposed involvement rather, of Paulo Duterte. Is there a new investigation on him now?
You see, I had inhibited early on, even during the time that the president now was mayor, I had inhibited in cases involving the mayor, the then mayor and his family. So when the case of Paulo Duterte came, they knew for a fact that I was going to investigate, and just the same, they still referred it to me, and I said, due to prior inhibition, I inhibit in this case.
Who is handling the case now?
If I recall it correctly, it was raffled to Dimoleo, to Deputy Ombudsman Ramos.
Okay. And you have no status update on this, Justice?
What I know is that it has not been terminated yet. Whether or not it is at this particular stage or not, I wouldn't know. I don't dare inquire. You know, so many words are here, so many people are listening. So whatever probably I do, they would probably give it any meaning. So I am very careful not to inquire on the status of the case.
Why is he being investigated?
I think it has to do with his SALN.
Would they still be on the fact-finding on the SALN of Mr. Paulo Duterte, or are they on the formal?
I think it has segued to preliminary investigation.
Preliminary investigation. All right. So I know that you are related by affinity to the president. You've said that. Everybody knows that. But I need to bring this in. There was a termination already of the case or the investigation on the president on his wealth, because this is what I wanted to ask. The AMLAC declined to provide a report or confirmation on the request.
That was the reason why whoever was in charge of the investigation, they closed it and terminated the investigation.
But would you characterize that as a termination of an investigation by default?
I have said before that that is without prejudice to a reinvestigation if warranted. No.
But doesn't the Ombudsman have the power to ask the AMLAC to provide mandatory documents? Paano ho ba yun,
Yes,
Justice?
but if they have not conducted any investigation, what document would they be giving?
So here comes the topic on Melchor Carandang, whom you defied the office of the president's order to suspend him. That was back in January. What is the situation with him, Ombudsman, now?
A case is being evaluated against him. We have our Internal Affairs Board, which handles cases against officials and employees of the Ombudsman. And whatever documents the panel gathered, they are still validating it and assessing it.
So it's really a matter of finding out if Deputy Ombudsman Melchor Carandang had breached this confidentiality
That's right.
rule. He was not supposed to say anything. I understand, as you said, Justice, that it's administrative. Is it possible also a criminal?
Positive.
Either or.
It's possible. Administrative or criminal.
Have you felt that you've been put in such an uncomfortable, precarious position because of, your relationship with the president?
No, I don't think so.
That you would have to inhibit on some cases, or it was just clear to
I
you?
had to inhibit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing I did. I had to inhibit.
I wanted to ask you that when you defied the president's order, was it clear to you, Justice?
It was clear to me because there's jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is very recent in that case of Gonzales, where the Supreme Court said that it is the Ombudsman and not the Office of the President which has jurisdiction, administrative jurisdiction, over an overall Deputy Ombudsman and the Deputy Ombudsman.
But what happened during those times, Ombudsman, that there was even talk that Malacanang might have him physically removed from the office? What were you running
It was
through?
mere propaganda. I knew that they would not do that.
Let me ask you then this. Do you feel that because of what happened with the AMLAC and the investigation of the Ombudsman that was terminated back in November, actually, that the Senate should look into this?
It's up to them if they want to conduct. But then again, it's still the Office of the Ombudsman which has the last say on the matter. The Senate can investigate any event, any occurrence, but they usually send their findings to us and their recommendation. But then again, we are not bound by their findings.
Talked about, the Ombudsman, you have more than a month left. There were words that you used in a very recent speech. I think it was before the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. You said this: by protecting great institutions like the Office of the Ombudsman, you are protecting the people. Let us help the office remain a strong and credible institution that would continue to act by a constitutional fiat as a protector of the people. I want to name, Ombudsman, some of those shortlisted: Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello, Supreme Court Associate Justice Samuel Martires, Duterte's former lawyer Edna Batacan, Special Prosecutor Edilberto Sandoval, and Sandigan Bayan Associate Justice Efren de la Cruz. Who among them you feel would protect the office of the Ombudsman best?
I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know them that well. What I know is that Justice de la Cruz, when he spoke before a gathering about a year ago, he was saying that he was not in favor of the inordinate delay doctrine, but he has to obey what the Supreme Court dictates because of this inordinate delay.
Yeah.
That's all I know about him.
And then the rest.
I don't know them that much. Yes.
Are you at all, I guess, worried about who? Are you concerned, rather? I guess that's a better word. Who may replace you?
I am concerned that if they believe that the reforms instituted in this office are for the good of the people, but these reforms will just go down the drain, that's my concern.
The president said that he won't choose a woman ombudsman, but he will consult with the people in the office of the ombudsman but not Justice Morales. How do you feel about that?
Well, if he believes that a woman should not be appointed and that he would not consult me, that's his own opinion. If that is meant to indict me, it's okay, he can indict me. But I feel that I have integrity. I can look at anyone straight in the face. I have integrity. I have not done anything below the standard that I want. And the standard that I want is you must have industry, you must have independence, and you must have integrity. Those are the traits that I want the succeeding ombudsman must have.
I want to move on to a complaint filed against Solicitor General Jose Calida by Jocelyn Acosta, who filed a complaint of graft, malversation, and code of conduct for public officials. May we just get a status on this, Justice?
It's under fact-finding investigation.
Still.
Yes, they're still gathering documents.
What are your thoughts on, for example, let me just bring this up. Section 9 on divestment, a public official or employee shall avoid conflicts of interest at all times. When a conflict of interest arises, he shall resign or within 30 days from his assumption of office and or divest himself of shareholdings.
Yes, yes.
What
I think the sacramental phrase there is when the conflict of interest arises that has to do with the faithful performance of the duty of the public official. So it would seem that Calida is saying that there is no public interest involved, that's why he did not divest, but then he says that if and when public interest arises, that will be the time that he will divest.
That's right, that's what he said.
Yes.
Does that sit well with you?
As I said, the case is pending fact-finding investigation. I don't like to preempt the result of the fact-finding investigation. You see, Calida had wanted to implicate me in the breach of confidentiality case against Melchor Carandang.
Yeah.
So whatever I say now, he might say I'm taking revenge. I have a clippings of all the statements made against me by him.
What do you plan to do with that?
I have no plans, no immediate plans anyway.
Right now, no immediate plans. Well, co-warranto decision of the Supreme Court, 8 and 6, of course, you were a member of the Supreme Court. I guess I just really want to get your thoughts on this. It was a close vote, 8-6. Was the 8 correct, Justice, in disqualifying the Chief Justice? Or do you really feel that impeachment is the sole only way to impeach a sitting Chief Justice?
Do you want me to be subjected to contempt?
By the Supreme Court, by your fellow members of the Supreme Court?
Right, that's my answer.
All right. So let me just ask you for maybe just thoughts on how the country is doing. What are your thoughts on the human rights situation of the country right now?
Again, you remember that I was interviewed by this Japanese network, and I was asked about this killing of people, and my statement was that goading people to kill people is to me unacceptable. So it did not sit well with the president. So what did the president do? He said, "Mahiya ka sa sarili mo, you're corrupt," and all that.
He
so
said, "Stop playing God," right? He said, "Stop playing God."
Well, you remember it correctly. Of course, I was hurt because what's wrong with that? Goading people to kill other people is to me unacceptable. What's wrong with that?
Paano ho ba yun?
Pag hindi, a person in his right mind, if you are stoic about it, if you are dead ma about it, sira ulo ka. So of course, I was hurt.
Minsan po, you brush it aside. Minsan po, sumasagot kayo. I'll give you an example. After that, sagutan yun, ng presidente, was when the president said, the Ombudsman and the Commission on Human Rights cannot investigate my people without my consent. And you were asked, Justice, what you thought of that, at ang sinabi niyo po,
Wala siyang pakialam.
yun
Right.
po ang sinabi niyo.
That's
Paano,
right.
how do you...
Well, because to begin with, how can the president repress the powers of the ombudsman? If you subpoena a particular policeman or all that, what's his business? Don't obey the ombudsman. He cannot do that. He should not do that.
How would you even describe this relationship with the president?
It's normal relationship. He attacks me. Well, you know, you remember that phrase in Merchant of Venice? If you prick me, will I not bleed? If you tickle me, will I not laugh? That's just human nature.
You said, do not be silent amid the abuse. You also said before that we do not need strong men, we need strong institutions. Was that a jab at the president?
No, if it happened to be a jab against him or about him, I'm sorry. But that's that's a universal principle that you need strong institutions. You don't need strong men.
So hindi naman yun natural
Well,
pagpaparinig sa presidente?
Well, as I said, if it hurt him or if it hit him, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, or I didn't intend to hit him.
So, leaving the office of the Ombudsman, I mean, you span 50 years, of your career. Is there still anything next? Is there anything more for Justice Conchita Carpio Morales?
Well, when I retired from the Supreme Court, I thought that was going to be the terminal of my career. But then again, I was considered for this position. I was reluctant. I was ambivalent. But as I have publicly stated before, I was challenged kasi eto na naman ako. Sabi nila matanda na yan, hindi na pwedeng ganito, ganyan, ganyan.
Politics?
What do you mean politics?
Would you even consider entering politics?
No, never. Well, to begin with, there's this prohibition against an ombudsman running for a public position after his or her retirement.
What is the...
Or some people are pulling my leg.
Why not consider?
My politics is not for me.
Justice, as you leave, again, in a month, what are the pressing, you feel, issues government should prioritize?
Well, it's still fighting corruption. Because as you read from newspapers, there have been around 20 who have been removed. There have been shades of corruption. And so, instead of corruption getting getting sidelined, it's still there. There's crescendo. There appears to be more instances of corruption. So,
do you believe the president when he says, I will take you out if there's even a whiff of corruption?
well, that's exactly what he's doing.
Have you launched any motu proprio investigation on any of the officials that the president had sacked? You have?
Yes.
May we know on whom?
Teo?
Secretary Teo?
Yes, among others. I know I will again get the ire of some people, but that's what we did. And some others, I'm not going to reveal them now.
Okay. As a last, maybe a message to the Filipino people.
Well, be vigilant. Don't be cowed by fear. Let's help this administration eradicate corruption. If you are cowed by fear and you refuse to talk or to complain about any irregularity, about any wrongdoing by any public official in conspiracy with a private official, you will get what you deserve.
Do you believe that the president can bring the Philippines forward into better times, bring better times for the Philippines?
Well, he's only in his second year, third year, so he has a 6-year term. So belief is one thing, perception is another, and actuality is still another. So,
do you wish him well?
I wish him well, of course. I wish him well for the good of the Philippines.
Thank you, Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales. Ma'am, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to interview you.
My honor to have been interviewed by Pinky.
Thank you.